All right, welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into something I'm really passionate about, a lesson plan that's all about putting students in the driver's seat of their own education. Let's jump right in.
Okay, first things first, I want you to do something for me. Just take a second and think back. Think about a project you did in school that you actually loved. Got one? Now, what was it about that project that made it so great? I'd be willing to bet that for a lot of you, a big part of it was that you had some real choice, some control over what you were doing.
And that feeling, right there, that's what brings us to the absolute core of this entire lesson. We're talking about the incredible, really game-changing power of student choice and something we call agency.
So what exactly do we mean by agency? It's a bit of a buzzword, but it's super important. It's not just about letting kids do whatever they feel like. No, it's about giving them the ability to be an active participant in their own learning. It's about empowering them to make decisions, to voice their opinions, and to take real, meaningful action.
I absolutely love this quote because it's the perfect way to picture it. Think about it. As the teacher, I'm still setting the destination, right? That's the learning goal. I can even give them the map. But agency, that's what happens when the student actually gets behind the wheel, puts their hands on the steering wheel, and starts to drive.
Okay, so if a student is going to drive that car, they need to know how it works, and more importantly, how they work as a driver. For any student to choose their path, and choose it well, they've got to start by understanding themselves as learners first.
And this is where the whole idea of learning styles comes into play. Now, it's really important to get this right. We are not talking about putting kids into rigid boxes. It's not about saying, you are a visual learner, and that's it. It's about helping them discover their preferences. How do they like to take in information? Do they learn best by seeing it, hearing it, or by actually getting their hands on it and doing it?
So the whole process starts with a really simple, low-stakes tool, this Pathways to Learning worksheet. It's basically a self-assessment where students just rate statements. Things like, I prefer to see information written down, or I learn best with hands-on stuff. And the key here is there are no right or wrong answers. It's just a way for them to get a quick snapshot of what their own preferences might be.
But here's the thing. Getting a score, that's not the point. Not at all. The real magic, the part that actually matters, happens in the reflection. We prompt them with questions like, hey, think of a time you learned something super easily. How was the teacher explaining it? This is where they start connecting the dots between this abstract idea of a learning style and their real, actual lives.
And this is how we have to frame it because it's so important. Your learning styles are like a toolbox. They are not limitations. Seriously, just because you really like using a hammer doesn't mean you can't ever use a screwdriver. The whole point of this is to help students figure out which tools are their favorites, their go-tos, while also learning how to get better with all the other tools in the box.
All right. So once a student has a better handle on what's in their personal toolbox, it is time for the fun part. Showing them all the amazing things they can build with it. It's time to show them what's possible.
Oh, this analogy is perfect. We introduce their options using something called a choice board, and it's literally like a menu at a restaurant. I tell my students, look, everything on this menu will meet the learning goal. It's all good stuff, but you get to choose the dish that looks the most appetizing to you.
And just look at the options on this menu. You can see how this works, right? A student who's more visual might immediately gravitate toward designing an infographic. The auditory learner in the room, they might be super excited to record their own podcast. And that kinesthetic learner, the one who needs to move, they'll probably jump at the chance to actually build a model. It's all about providing different roads that all lead to the same place.
Okay, so we've done the self-discovery, we've looked at the menu of options, now it's time to put it all together. It's time for the student to become the architect of their very own project.
And we don't just throw them in the deep end. The Choose Your Path worksheet gives them the structure they need. It breaks down what can feel like a really big, intimidating task, plan a project, into 4 simple, manageable steps. It's a roadmap that takes them from, I have this idea, to, okay, here's my actual plan.
Yeah, this worksheet right here, this is the tool that really makes it all happen. It walks them through choosing their topic, figuring out how they're going to explore it. Will they do research, interviews, a more hands-on thing? And then deciding how they want to share what they've learned. The beautiful thing is, every single step is their decision. It really is their voice and their path. And this is maybe the most important part, the why. We make them explain why they made their choices. They can't just pick what looks easy or fun. They have to connect it back to their learning style assessment. So they'll write something like, I chose to build a model because I'm a kinesthetic learner and I learn best by doing. That step is what makes them realize they're making a smart, strategic choice about their own learning.
So the project gets planned, the student does the work, they turn it in, they get a grade, and that's it, right? We're done? No way, not even close. You see, the project itself, that's just the vehicle we're using to get to the real destination.
Which leads to the big question, right? What is the real goal here? Why go to all this trouble to give students this much choice? Because it goes so much deeper than just getting one assignment done. What are we really trying to build in them?
The real goal is to build something called metacognition. I know it sounds like a big, fancy academic word, but it's actually a pretty simple idea. It's the practice of thinking about your own thinking. That's it. It's learning how you learn. It's that powerful skill of knowing what works for you and what doesn't.
So, how do we make sure that lesson actually sticks? Well, after the project is all done, they do one last reflection. This is where they think back on the whole process and answer questions about their strengths, their challenges, and how having that choice affected their motivation. This is the step that really cements the learning. Not about the project topic, but about themselves. And that's something they can use for every single challenge they face from here on out.
And that, right there, is why this matters so much. When we give our students the tools to understand themselves and to make these kinds of informed choices, we're doing so much more than just helping them pass a test or get a good grade. We are literally helping them become independent, confident, lifelong learners. People who see their education not as something that just happens to them, but as something they truly, deeply own.
Which, it leaves us with a pretty amazing question to think about. By taking them out of the passenger seat and putting them in the driver's seat, we're handing them the keys. And when students truly own their path, just imagine where they'll decide to go.